everyone, it's training session of main training session of 18th of October. I have a announcement to make that tomorrow we don't gonna have any meeting or session because of Bala Rabiul Awwal, because we have a holiday. So everyone from Pakistan, we gonna have holiday tomorrow. Now, Dr. Bill, over to you now.
Thank you so much, Samar. Good to see everyone here. I'm going to put the presentation up for you guys to get a copy of it too. That was, did you get the other two PowerPoint presentations earlier? I'll be glad to put the third one up as we go. So today we're talking about lesson 3. So let's see if we can get that one started. All right. So we've been talking quite a bit about emotional intelligence, and there are different parts to it that are important to follow through and describe. The first one we did was self-awareness, how you understand yourself and get in touch with your own emotional state of mind. Then we talked about, last time we talked about self-management. That means how you kind of check yourself and put yourself into the position where you can actually do something in any state of mind. You might be in that high adrenaline state, or that state you get with a lot of epinephrine and adrenaline running through your body, flight or fight. We talked about that. We talked about being able to control yourself and do the right thing at the right time and the right reason. Today we're talking about emotional intelligence, which is social awareness section. This is where you start taking in what's going on around you, not just what's going on within yourself. Being aware of your surroundings and the people that surround you. So we want to kind of talk about how that influence impacts us in our family, business, and professional life. The social awareness is your ability to pick up on the emotions of people around you. If somebody's not picking up on things, they often get called brain dead. That means that they're numb to what's going on around them and they don't react because they don't pay attention or they don't understand what's going on around them. So what we want to do is have everybody understand what's going on around them to the point where they can make the right choice. And when you can look around and understand what the world actually looks like and understand it, there's a term we talk about from German called Gestalt, where you see a piece of something and you understand what everything is. And you know the story of the 5 blind men who saw the elephant. They didn't actually see it, did they? They touched the elephant. And that vision they have with just their hands, each blind man was talking to the other blind man, and they said, well, I know what an elephant looks like. And the one that was touching the tail said it feels like a rope. And the one that was touching the tusk said it feels like a shiny pointed object, like a spear. And the blind man who was touching the elephant's foot said it feels like the trunk of a tree. And the one that was touching its trunk thought, well, this must be like a snake. And the one who was touching the side of the elephant said, this is a big wall. So each one felt with his hands and felt like it was something different. And so their social awareness was limited by their sight being blocked. And they could only take in physically what they could feel. And so it's kind of like that with social awareness. If you don't keep all your senses open to what's going on around you, you may think everything's a tail or a trunk, and you'll miss out on the wall and the spear and the trunk of the tree. It's just something you got to develop a skill to understand what the world looks like around you using all your five senses. So the first thing, you listen. What do people say? What do they intend to say when they actually say what they say? You know, when people talk, only about 20% is verbal. 80% is seen by the eyes. It's by the tone, not just the words they use. It's by the inflection in the voice. It's by the look on their face, their eyes, the way they move their eyebrows, the way they dart their eyes left or right or up or down, the hand motions they may use. So listening not only involves ears, but it involves sight and understanding what nonverbal communication means as well as verbal communication. And so we observe people's behavior. We observe how they act when you ask questions. We observe how they act when you pose a solution. You know, people react different ways. And if they look you in the eye, that means one thing. If they look away, that means another thing. So you observe what's happening. Now, the next thing that's important to do is to interpret what you heard and what you saw and put it to social context. Context means it's got to fit the situation properly. You know, somebody who's not mentally there might give you a totally different answer to something you expect. And so they may have a mental deficiency, so they cannot answer you. But most of the time, most people that you run into, especially if they're in a business situation, they're talking normal, straight at you. And so you'll probably get a straight answer from those people. But what if it doesn't sound like what you thought it should? Well, that's when you have social awareness, when you realize what they're saying doesn't match what you expect. Or maybe your expectations are different from their expectations. And so you get a different answer because you expected a different one and you're not communicating properly. So the person who interprets has to get feedback. So once we get all the feedback and once we understand what that person's talking about, then we have to reflect to that person. Is this what I heard you say? A lot of times in our business, the dental business, you know, we'll listen to a patient and we'll listen to what their symptoms and signs are and how they feel. And then we'll ask them again, what gives you those signs or symptoms? What makes it happen? What makes it hurt if you have a toothache? And we'll observe their face and we'll look at their body language and we can interpret whether they're serious or whether they're just kind of not really feeling it, but they're just there for a reason that may be minor versus major, you know, acute pain versus low grade sensitivity, you know, just different levels of pain. So we're looking at their face and they use the words they use to describe how serious their problem is. So we can often tell what the problem is just by the choice of words that people use. And so we do an interpretation and we interpret what they mean, and then we feed back to them what we think they said. And so feedback is one of the most important parts of the communication process, is to be sure you're on the same wavelength, that you understand each other before you move forward with something, especially something vital. Then you need to say, this is what I heard you say. Is that correct? So you get feedback right away. So that's kind of a social awareness technique that we use, that we don't move forward without verification. You know, back in the old Cold War days, it was trust but verify. You know, you might say the Americans didn't trust the Soviets, or the Soviets didn't trust the Americans, so they had to verify what they were doing with the number of missiles they had. So it wasn't just take your word for it. So those are things with social awareness, is if you're talking to somebody, you need to trust them but verify what they're saying. Now, once you've gotten through that point, no matter what you found out, you need to disconnect yourself. You don't need to buy into being locked into their point of view or their belief system or their emotion. And we're mostly talking about emotion. You don't want to mirror that emotion every time. Although when you're getting into rapport with people, you do want to mirror their emotion a little bit. If they're happy, you want to be happy. If they're sad, you want to be sad, because you want to match the emotion so that they are in rapport. People that are very sad and it's not a happy time, if you come in all happy and bubbly and you don't reflect a little bit of the understanding that they're sad, then you'll never get a connection between that person, right? So we're talking about understanding them early, but then once you leave the conversation, you need to disconnect yourself and start being aware of, okay, I understood the situation. Now, how am I going to deal with that? I'm socially aware of the situation. How does that fit in the overall emotional intelligence quotient? You know, does it impact me to understand it? So you have to let go of your opinion. Your opinion is such that it's not really what you think that matters in terms of in the social awareness arena. Your opinion is just your opinion. What the other person feels is the most important thing right now. And so if you're going to have a positive outcome, then you just have to resolve an issue between the people, answer the questions, look at the options. Siddique has done a great job of working through this area of disassociating himself from people that are upset or people that are questioning which is the right way to go, and they're confused. So he always works to solve the confusion, to move people past the upset level because they don't understand. Most people are upset because they don't understand. So I've watched Siddique work with these issues, and he's a master at always keeping a level head and letting his personal opinion go and getting to the bottom line to help people solve a problem. So that's a master skill. And he doesn't quit just because somebody says the wrong thing and typically would make somebody mad and they walk off and quit. He usually likes to work through the process to understand. And that's a valuable thing to learn. The impact of social awareness on your future is high. If you can maintain your sanity and your calmness in the heat of the moment when people are upset, you'll be a lot better at your position at your job. That has a lot to do with team members. If your team members are emotionally challenged and they're always erupting because something upsets them, you're always going to have a volatile team. And so you want to diffuse the people that are like that. You want to work with them independently and train them, talk to them about their emotional upheaval, that they need to control themselves, do the things we talked about in the first two lessons, self-awareness and self-management. A manager needs to make sure the team understands that there is a way to manage these issues. You don't have to fire people or get rid of people just because they seem to be having some self-awareness and self-management problems. But what we always had is an opinion that if you hire the right people the right way, you won't have these kind of issues to begin with. But if you do, you're always looking for a high quality person to be on your team, right? And if you decide after a while they're not the right kind of person for the team, then you need to find another position for them where they fit better. And for those who are totally unfit for being hired, then it's an unfortunate thing, but they will probably need to be let go from your team so they can join somebody else's team where the requirements are not so high. The qualifications to be on a team can be quite rigorous if you have a high functioning team. And so everybody's going to fit to the best level. Now, beyond the team, where the rubber meets the road is with the clients or the patients in a medical office. That means that you've got to really have a social awareness to deal with people in the public. You've got to understand where they're coming from, what their aspirations and goals are. Why did they call you up in the first place? Why are they in front of you seeking help? You know, they have a need, and you have to fill that need to complete a task, to make the job work out for both you and your employer, or if you're the boss, you know, for your team. So, you know, if you want to have impact, you really do have to put out an awareness of what's going on in the world with the patients in front of you, the clients in front of you. Now, if you want to be a very good marketer, you have to understand social awareness of what makes people make choices. And you have to understand how to bring people through a process, a funnel. And if you're not aware of what makes people tick, what makes people make decisions, that's part of being a good marketer, is having total social awareness of why people choose to do what they do. And that's what separates the really good marketers from those who are not. They understand what's really going on in the world, and they answer a need and fill it. See, if there's no need, nobody will buy. You have to create or understand a need people have so that they will buy from you. You have to have the answer. One of my mentors always had a group of sayings. He said, if you speak, ask questions. He said, ask the question, the answer to which is the message you want to send. And he was right. You know, he said, a question is asked properly is worth a lot of answers. And I think everybody should understand that having social awareness means that you're asking questions, getting to the right answers, as opposed to just giving your opinion, speaking and not listening. So listening skills are very important. Speaking properly are very important. But, you know, as a family, and I know everyone listening is part of a family, you're going to get more benefit from these lessons of self-awareness, self-management, and now talking social awareness. You're going to get a lot more benefits at home if you're taking these lessons home and you start to be socially aware of what's going on in the family, what other people are feeling, what their understanding is. You don't live in a bubble. You know, you live in a household with other people. And if one person is kind of brain dead, as we talked about earlier, they don't have any concept of what other people feel, then it can stress the family out. It can cause dynamics that can lead to trouble. And so the bonus of all this is you're learning how to be a much better person because you're more likable, you're more tuned in, and you understand how the social dynamics work within the family a lot better when you have emotional intelligence. So we like to say, think like an anthropologist. You know, an anthropologist is one who studies people around them, learn from people, learn from history, learn from how cultures work, learn from how people in the past did things so that you can do better in the future. The wisdom of the ages is passed down from the older generation to the younger generation. And so an anthropologist is one who studies those trends of what people used to do so we can do better in the future. So that's the information I wanted to share with you today. So we'll open it up now to question and answer, and we'll use our format that we did earlier where we have written questions. And I'm glad to spend as much time up to 2 o'clock as you like. And so Samar, thanks for that. And I hope that was a useful, interesting topic, the social awareness.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bill. Now we are going towards the question answer session. Talha, can you please share? Okay, fine. Dr. Bill, did you open the link?
Not yet. Let's see. It's in the
Chat box. Let me give it to you again. Let me give it to you again.
It's in which thing?
Can you please give the link of Sabahat? Can you please give the link of his sheet?
Ma'am, I sent it in the chat box.
It's a form.
Oh,
I'll find it in a minute. I'm looking around. There we go. In the chat. There it is.
Yes, here it is in chat.
Okay, I see that. Should I share that screen I'm looking at or
Yeah,
leave it?
please. Because everyone knows that whose question gonna be answered now.
All right, let me go back to share then. There we are. So what question number would we like to start on today?
It's from go. You have to go down, scroll down.
Nothing way down.
Just hold on. Let me open my side. You are in previous questions. You have to go to the questions. Questions tab, right in front, right in the first.
This one?
You are in previous questions tab.
There's previous.
Let me see how many we have. We don't have questions today in sheet. Guys, you didn't put questions in here? Yes, there are no questions in the sheet. Dr. Bill, just hold on. Let me see what's wrong here. Because it's connected.
I think I answered most of these last time. The ones I'm looking at now, right?
Just hold on. Let me open it. In a question sheet, you are in previous question sheet. There is one question right here in front of me. If you go to the questions tab, I don't know my screen is Dr. Bill, you have to go to the questions tab.
Ten 18. Do I need to do anything or am I waiting on you guys?
Dr. Bill, there is a
Ah.
question from Kiran Fawad. What is emotional intelligence is important for the leadership of a business? She asked this
Okay.
question.
I see that question. Sure. Why is
Yes.
emotional intelligence important for leadership in business? Let's see what I can tell you about that. Suppose you've got a team to lead and you've got to manage people's different states of emotion. If you've got a rocky team where people have unlevel or highs and lows, then you've got problems to deal with among individuals, conflict. If you're talking about a team, the team will not be smooth if somebody's out of balance. Emotional intelligence is very important in terms of working with people cohesively. I mean, if you look at IQ, you can never have a team that works well if you had people that had high intelligence on one side and low intelligence on the other, and they couldn't learn a task. So that would give you some problems with a team effective functioning. Well, it's the same with emotional intelligence too. Highly effective people that succeed in life typically have high emotional intelligence. And if you're a leader and your team has a bunch of what I would call low intelligence in terms of emotional intelligence, you're always going to be struggling to achieve any goal, any success. So high emotional intelligence is a valuable commodity. It's good because you can teach it. You're not born with it. IQ, you're born with it pretty much. Yeah, highly intelligent people, knowledge-wise, can learn a lot, but those who can apply knowledge, those have high IQ. So when we talk about emotional intelligence, we want to be a team leader that understands it and is able to teach it and improve it. Every team can have an improved emotional intelligence quotient. Every individual can be improved by doing certain things. And so that's part of the process of emotional intelligence is application. And we'll come to a lecture in the future in a couple of weeks where we'll talk about application and how you can get more emotional intelligence. But the main thing is it's teachable. You can learn it and you're not stuck with a particular amount of emotional intelligence, but you do have to be open to learning. So that's the relationship between EQ and leadership. Is leaders typically always have high emotional intelligence. Followers typically have less emotional intelligence. People get promoted because they have high emotional intelligence. Let me talk about jobs that people have and a little bit about that, because some of you might not be aware certain positions and jobs that take more emotional intelligence than others. So like this, the emotional intelligence plays an important role in many areas of your lives. A recent book on the best career opportunities closely examined the skills and aptitudes required to succeed in many jobs with a future. So some jobs don't require a great deal of emotional intelligence. These careers mainly focus on accomplished tasks individually or by working with others in fixed yet in a structured way. And that's not to say that if you have a high level of emotional intelligence that you won't succeed in those careers. In fact, your emotional intelligence may be just a thing that sets you apart from your colleagues and leads you to other success in the workplace. Some jobs, though, put you in a contact with other people and involve working with informal teams and require you to empathize with and understand others. If you don't have a high level of emotional intelligence, then you may find these careers to be difficult or perhaps less satisfying. So here's a list of some of the best job opportunities, and we're listing these in order of how much emotional intelligence they require for success and satisfaction in the job. So the lowest amount of emotional intelligence job requirement is working to be a botanist, a plant. Somebody who works with plants, they're not going to talk back to you. They're not going to ask you questions. You don't have to interact with plants very much. So a botanist would be the lowest form of need to have emotional intelligence. The next one might be a chef. A chef is cooking, doing things all day long. It's kind of like having a memory of how to prepare. And so you're not having to deal too much with too many things, unless you're the head chef, and then you got a whole team to worry about. But if you're just a chef doing one job, it's kind of the same work over and over again. An actuary working with numbers, a billing clerk, a systems analyst, electrical engineer, an accountant, a geophysicist, a software engineer, a waitress. Now, I don't know if I agree with that one, because, a waitress needs to understand things pretty much if she's going to be successful, or he. A medical assistant, travel agent, secretary, optician, loan officer, insurance agent, editor, sales representative. So right in the middle of all the list, sales representative. And so what you're doing right now might be in the realm of sales representative. You may be training somebody, you may be representing a company, and you may be doing some sales in some aspect. So then it goes up from there. An EEG technologist, a dental hygienist, a benefit compensation analyst, a retail sales associate, somebody who interfaces with the public to sell things in a store, a writer, a dentist. Well, there you go. That's my job. They say that I need just above average emotional intelligence to be a dentist. A police officer, occupational therapist, a training manager, an adult education teacher, a public relations professional, a nurse, a human resource manager. They're dealing with people all day long. A teacher, a physical therapist, a family doctor, a geriatric care specialist, a social worker, and the top of the line, they said that needs to be emotionally intelligent is a psychiatrist, because you're dealing probably with people who are not balanced, and they need to be totally socially aware and not be able to disassociate from the person. So that's an interesting list, and I would say that highly successful people will typically always be highly emotionally intelligent. Next question is.
Yeah, she have next question. What is the relationship between emotional intelligence and leadership?
Yep. Did that seem to answer the question pretty well?
Yeah. Thank you so
Thank
much. Next question is, what is the relationship between emotional intelligence and leadership? I hope you see the second question.
What's the relationship?
Yeah. Emotional intelligence and leadership.
Well, the relationship is you probably can't be a leader unless you have emotional intelligence. You probably will not be asked to be a leader. You probably will not be promoted to be a leader without emotional intelligence. So if you want leadership, if you desire to be a leader, if you want to have control over your situation and be in charge of something, you probably need to develop your EQ skills. That's the relationship. High achievers, leaders tend to have high emotional intelligence. The next question is, how do you change your mindset from negative to positive during work? Well, you have to have a focus on what's important. If you're not focused on what's important, you may be directed internally, thinking about your own situation instead of the task at hand. If you're at a job, you've been given an opportunity to earn money, to earn a living. And so you should put the job first, and you should put the need of the company first to a degree, So you should be positive about the company, or you shouldn't work there. If you're negative about a company, you shouldn't work there in the first place. Now, we do realize that there aren't very many opportunities in some places, and people take jobs that they don't really enjoy, but you have to make the best of what you got, right? So you should have a positive attitude that, yes, I've got a job, and even though I don't like it, I'll do the best I can so that when the good job comes that I want, then I'll have the recommendation of people that I do a good job. Even if it's a difficult job, I'll get a good recommendation. I'll have good follow-up and feedback from those who evaluated me in my current job. So I think the mindset to be positive is you just have to feed yourself with positive thoughts. Affirmations are very important. A lot of people do affirmations where they have positive statements and written them out and put them around where they can see them, and they'll repeat them every day. You know, you typically become what you say. You know, if you repeat something over and over again, you begin to believe it and achieve it. So Napoleon Hill had that famous saying, whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, he can achieve. So you have to conceive it, then you have to believe it. And the way you believe it is by repetition a lot of times. And once you believe you can do something, you put it out into the universe verbally, you put it out and say, I can do this, then you'll actually start to create in your own existence the ability to do things. If you say you can't do it, you don't like something, that's going to come true. If you say you can do it and you don't mind doing it, you're good at it, that's going to come true. So whatever you put out in the world by verbal, then it's going to come true. And that's been proven over and over again that positive brings positive and negative brings negative. So I would just say stay away from the negative. The next question is, how can you recommend, or can you recommend an impactful book for emotional intelligence? Yeah, I'm going to do that at the next session or the following session. And I've got, that's one of the lessons is to have a book to look at. And if you want to preview it, you know, maybe you can go ahead and get one ordered. It might be Emotional Intelligence 2.0. So look for that one. And I'll do some other research and find some other books that are in the same area. But the one that I studied mostly was Emotional Intelligence 2.0. Is behavior related to emotional intelligence? Yes, it is. Behavior is. Behavior is all about emotional intelligence. Bad behavior, good behavior, appropriate behavior. And I think the word appropriate behavior is more key. You know, there's not always good and bad about things. It's just what's appropriate for the moment. So it may be appropriate to do things in one setting, but not appropriate in another setting. So we want to look at the role of behavior. And if you're in a social situation and you're in a movie watching a film, the first person that yells fire is typically the person who's the hero if there's a real fire in the theater and everybody gets to leave before they burn the place down. But the person who has bad behavior and yells fire, but there's no fire, that person's got bad behavior and their emotional intelligence level is not very high. So, you know, it all depends on what you're doing and the situation. If you act according to what's in front of you properly, that's called social awareness. And if you have, of course, personal awareness of your own makeup, how you feel and think, and how you could control yourself, you know, you're typically going to be more effective than if you don't have that control. So that's behavior. And I think a good example is like my grandchildren. They're young. My wife is always saying they're only 3 years old. They really can't act like an adult yet. They don't understand things. They don't have control. They don't have social awareness and self-control. And so, yeah, their behavior, we would term it as bad. You know, if they throw a fit and they won't eat their eggs in the morning because they don't want them, that's socially not acceptable, right? They need to have breakfast before they go to school. But the 3-year-old is different from, a 25-year-old who won't eat their breakfast in the morning. Yeah, you have a little difference of opinion from somebody who's not quite mature. And so we look at people that are socially immature as people with low emotional intelligence. And that kind of goes hand in hand. Next question, if you got one. I don't see another one there written yet, but these are good questions and I'm glad to pontificate on them. Hopefully they're useful for you.
Yeah, it's really useful for us. One question is left from Shahid Hussain. So, what is solicit? He is asking what is solicit. Shahid Hussain Sajid. He asking this question. Another question is also written. How to change your mindset from negative to positive during work?
How do you change your mindset from negative to positive during work?
Yeah, during work.
Yeah, I think we covered that one.
Okay. Is behavior related to emotional intelligence? This
We
one
covered
is
that
also-
one.
Okay. I hope have a student built his emotional intelligence to participate in a competitive examination.
How a student built his emotional intelligence to participate in a competitive examination.
Yeah.
I think that's a good question. I mean, that's kind of a application question of how do you apply emotional intelligence so that you can compete and be more capable of achievement, right? Well, the examination itself, a competitive examination, is what really determines how you're going to answer that question. What is the competitive examination? Are you competing in learning, like a book test, facts and figures, or are you competing with somebody on verbal skills and debate? Are you competitive in terms of achievement on a scholastic level? You're not going to have much benefit in emotional intelligence and your acquired intelligence from emotional intelligence. It's not going to help you that much to learn facts and figures in a book and pass an exam. But if you're dealing with people where you have to interview with people, where you have to interact in a group setting and have competition, and where there's going to be evaluation of the people based on how they interact and how they might talk among themselves or debate in a debate situation, how they'll do in a practice speech, you might say, practice competition like that, then emotional intelligence would be totally appropriate, because if you've got to interact with people, you got to have a high emotional intelligence. And so the answer I have really is, if you're in competitive examinations or situations in general where you're competing with others for a job, for a position, if you want to move up in leadership particularly, then you have to show you have emotional intelligence in self-awareness, self-management, self-control, and social awareness. And so if you don't have all those things, you won't get picked for the job. You won't get picked for leadership. And if you're in competitiveness positions trying to move up, people are always looking at others and how they stack up against the facts and figures of IQ and EQ. And competitive examinations really determine what's important, what type examination. So I'll go back to that one thing, is qualification first. What is the examination? What are you competing against? And then you can answer the question even in more detail.
Thank you so much, Dr. Will. We have completed all the questions.
Yeah, these questions are very good, and I think it means that you guys are thinking, how can
Such
you
an
apply
informational
this?
topic you shared with us. Social awareness.
Good.
Yeah. All questions are completed.
Is that all of the questions?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for being a part of this today, and I'll send up the PowerPoint as you'd like it. I'll try to submit that so you can have a copy of it.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're
once again.
welcome. Y'all have a good day, and we'll talk to you a little later.
Same to you. Bye.
You're welcome.
जी इस बार आज की कोई असेसमेंट है?
नहीं, आज की कोई असेसमेंट नहीं है, और वैसे भी 7 मिनट्स आर लेफ्ट।
हाँ जी, ठीक।
जी
मुबीन, आपका कोई क्वेश्चन है?
जी।
मुबीन, जी जुल्करनैन।
तलहा भाई आज असाइनमेंट है नहीं थी जो आपकी समझ ने दी थी, नॉट कंप्लीट पता नहीं इस तरह की कोई असाइनमेंट दी थी।
नहीं वो आज नहीं है, कल की हमें वैसे छुट्टी है, ठीक है।
अच्छा
तो परसों को क्या पता 2 असाइनमेंट इकट्ठी मिल जाए, वो आपको
चलें,
पहले
ठीक
बता
है।
देंगे। हाँ जी,
ठीक है, कल छुट्टी है।
हाँ कल छुट्टी है, कल कोई मीटिंग नहीं होगी, ना वर्किंग होगी।
चलें ठीक है, सबको
ठीक।
बता दे।
हाँ सबको पता लग गया। अच्छा जी नुमान।
ठीक है।
ये जो मैम ने कही थी 2 असेसमेंट, उनके भी लिंक्स नहीं मिल रहे मुझे। मैंने आज मैसेज किया था ग्रुप में, और जो आज वाली है ये भी, इसकी भी वो PDF कॉपी अगर मिल जाए हमें तो प्रेजेंटेशन, ये जो आज हुई है और जो पहले वाली 2 असेसमेंट दी उस मैम ने।
उसके लिंक्स आपको मिल जाएंगे। अच्छा जी अजीज भाई।
हेलो भाई, अभी तक मुझे कैश एंड वेल्थ प्रोजेक्ट में ऐड नहीं किया गया।
हेलो।
अच्छा सही। जाहिद।
और शायद मीटिंग में नहीं है।
अच्छा जाहिद को काइंडली सुना, तो आप नोट कर लें। अजीज भाई को ना फैसल भाई से कह के इनकी ना एंट्री करवा दें।
ठीक है, ठीक है।
जी इनका नाम नोट कर लें, अजीज अहमद भाई। अच्छा जी
Thank you.
मुबीन। चलें ठीक है, और किसी का कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं है तो फिर इंशाल्लाह परसों को दोबारा ट्रेनिंग 10 बजे होगी। ओके जी, अल्लाह हाफिज।
फैसल भाई का लिंक रख दे।
फैसल भाई का लिंक ऐसे करेगा कि आपके ना वो ग्रुप में आ जाएगा,
ठीक है।
जो मेल वाला। हाँ
तो इस ब्लैक वाला हैंसी लेके आना जाना।